November. It is in November. Did I just say November?
Will be soon enough.
Trying to get this thing over with sooner than... It is the second Tuesday in September. The year is 2023 at 6 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order, Oak Harbor City Council, and welcome you all this evening. We like to start our meetings with an invocation and pledge of allegiance. I'd like to invite you to stand. Tonight's invocation is from Pastor Matthew Erikson with Hope Church, and we'll follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead. Pastor Erikson?
All right, thank you. Welcome, distinguished members and guests. Let's bow our heads and pray. Dear wise and loving Father, first let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. And thank you also for the ability to be involved in useful work, for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thank you as well for the freedom to embrace you, or even the freedom, Lord, to reject you. And thank you for loving us, even so, from your boundless and gracious nature. In your scriptures, you've said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. And therefore, I pray for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and for this assembled council. And I'm asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, and personal peace in their own lives and joy in the task that they have at hand. I pray for the agenda that is set before them today. Please give them an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Oak Harbor, Washington. It is in your most blessed name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Erikson. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So tonight's meeting is being streamed live on YouTube and Facebook, and will be broadcast on cable channel 10 HD 1090 following the meeting. Attendees are participating in person and via teleconference. Guests that are included in staff presentations will be excused at the conclusion of the agenda item as appropriate. So I'll turn to Clerk Julie for roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem has let us know that she's running a little late to this meeting, Mayor. Councilmember Munns? Present. Councilmember Stuckey?
Present.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Present.
Councilmember Marshall?
Present.
Councilmember Wittgenstein?
Present.
Mayor, Councilmember Wiesner has let us know that he will not be in attendance and has asked to be excused.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Yes, Councilor Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we excuse Councilman Wiesner for the meeting tonight.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to excuse Councilor Wiesner. That motion comes from Councilor Munns and was seconded by Councilor Eric Marshall. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. That's unanimous. And so we will expect to see Mayor Pro Tem any moment, I'm guessing. Good, okay. Let me see, are there any suggested changes to the agenda? Nope, that's a good thing. Nobody's looking at me, that's a good thing. The agenda is approved as presented. So we will now go on then to presentations, and this evening we actually don't have any presentations scheduled. So we'll leap to item number 3, which is citizen comment period. Citizens may comment on consent agenda items or subjects of interest not listed on the agenda. at this time. Citizens will have the opportunity to comment on the remaining agenda items during the meeting as appropriate. Citizens can also visit our website prior to our meeting for methods to submit public comment or contact City Clerk Julie Nestor. When submitting comments, please include your name and address. Public comments sent anonymously will be shared with the mayor and council but will not be displayed. We have received one new public comment since our last regular meeting. The comment came from Dennis Wahome, a visitor to Oak Harbor, who wrote to commend Officer Herrera at her assistance at the Hydros for Heroes event. The comment is displayed here. I love to get a good comment, don't you? That's pretty cool. I'll have to make sure and tell the chief and pass that along. It's really nice. Are there any members of the public present who wish to speak to items not listed on the agenda or on the consent agenda? Anybody sign up? Okay. Okay. Then we'll close the public comment period. I just have to tell Pastor Erikson that during your wonderful invocation, you paused right after we need to pray for the mayor, and it was at least 3 seconds, or felt like 3 seconds, and I thought, whoops, and then you went on to pray for the really important people. But thank you. Okay, we will move then to the consent agenda. Staff has presented the listed consent agenda items. Are there any objections or changes or questions? Nope, not seeing anybody looking at me. That's a good thing. Or probably shouldn't have put it that way, but okay. Consent agenda is approved as presented. And we'll move on to my comments. I've got a page full, but I'll try to get through them pretty quick. I think I can. So the city is receiving a forestry grant. Pretty cool. The city of Oak Harbor has received a $1.6 million Forest Service Urban and Community Forest Grant from the Washington State Department of Agriculture. This grant will fund a forestry management plan for the city, several right-of-way landscaping improvements and tree restoration projects, and additional full-time staffing to help implement those improvements over the next 5 years. Congratulations to staff, and thank you to Senator Cantwell for her support in the city receiving this grant. I got a feeling that we had some staff members involved in this, and I want to thank them also. We're working pretty hard in the area of grants these days, and it's been paying off. Thank you. Tour of Anacortes Water Treatment Plant. City Administrator Oborn and members of our staff recently toured the City of Anacortes Water Treatment Plant on the Skagit River. The City of Oak Harbor, along with other communities, purchases its water from Anacortes. Release of seal pups at the Marina. Sea Life Rescue Rehab and Research, SR3, proudly released 2 wild harbor seal pups back into the waters yesterday from the Oak Harbor Marina. The 2 pups, named Salt and Aioli, also known as 23-6 and 23-4, spent just over 80 days recovering at Sea Life Rescue Center after being reported as abandoned by local marine rescue groups. To learn more about SR3, visit their website at sr3.org. Island County Board of Health, respiratory illness update. The Island County Board of Health has established a seasonal respiratory illness webpage to share data, resources, and guidance with the community. See their webpage at www.islandcountywa.gov. for more information. So there may be some noise. NAS Whidbey has informed us they will conduct a limited explosive ordnance disposal unit demolition training at the Seaplane Base survival area on Thursday, the 21st. This training is necessary as part of a certification exercise to assess the unit's surface response capabilities. All actual demolition operations will occur during daylight hours. Safety precautions will be set to ensure ground operations pose no threat to neighboring property or persons. If you have questions or concerns, please call the Public Affairs Office at NAS Whidbey Island, and that's 360-257-2286. I've been around a few times in the past where they announced this, and I don't remember really ever hearing those ordinance demolitions. I hope they don't have louder ones these days and prove me wrong. The Oak Harbor Garden Club Centennial. The Oak Harbor Garden Club is having its 100-year centennial celebration on Saturday, September 30th. The club began 100 years ago, and we will be marking the event at our first council meeting in October. And you can look on the screen now for the additional upcoming events. And before I turn to council for council comments, we have one item for consideration on the agenda this evening regarding the council calendar. So I'll turn to City Administrator Blaine O'Born at this time. Blaine?
All right, we're just doing a little planning here. One of the things we did last year, we kind of clustered the meetings in November and December, and this time we decided to just kind of leave them there and just look ahead when we got close to it and see if it's okay to cancel those meetings. So the proposal before you is cancel the regular council meeting the week of Thanksgiving on the Tuesday before Thursday's Thanksgiving, and then cancel the workshop between Christmas and New Year. So I think we can conduct business with the other two meetings those months. So I would recommend that the council do it, but it takes a council action to cancel those meetings.
So that's the regular meeting?
Yeah, it's a regular meeting and then a workshop.
Regular meeting in November and a workshop in December.
Yes,
So you would like a motion
yes.
if the council feels that's appropriate?
And I believe there's a,
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
I move to amend the council's 2023 calendar to cancel the November 21st council meeting and the December 27th council workshop.
Second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second, and the motion is to cancel the November 21st council meeting and the December 27th council workshop. That motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Heisen, seconded by Councilor Munns. Any questions, input? People that really like to have meetings? Oh, no. Yes, Mr. Wigginstead.
Is this going to impact anything we have coming up in the months?
I don't believe so. So we kind of waited, and people need to do their calendars, so I didn't want to wait too long on doing it, but we project ahead, and so it doesn't seem like it would impact it. If it does, I mean, we can also do special meetings if we needed to do that, if we had some important, we've done them occasionally, so we still had options. So if we really had some issues, then I could come back and the mayor can call a special meeting, or we can ask council to, if we have time, to schedule a special meeting. But I think with 2 meetings, we do this and we go to 2 meetings in the summertime in June and July, and we make it work.
Okay.
But what'll probably happen, there'll be a little bit more chance of an action item being on a workshop, or a workshop item on a council meeting. But we've done that before on scheduling, and so we'll just adjust that way.
Yes, Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. O'Byrne, I was reminded by our clerk that last December, we changed the workshop for November to the next week, the 29th. So I was looking and I hadn't changed it on my calendar. So we have Thanksgiving week off, but the next week we'll have the workshop because it would be the 5th.
Yeah,
Wednesday.
yeah, that one would have been really bad because that would have been the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So we already adjusted that one
I
on the 29th.
didn't adjust it on my calendar when it was done last December, so I just wanted to remind people, especially the public, if they weren't aware of it, so.
Yeah, and you got
Thank
the
you.
reminder on the calendar again, because I think the November meeting that's normally on Tuesday is on Wednesday because we don't do it on the election, so.
Yep,
A national night out, so we have a few instances where we move things around, so it's always good to look at that calendar. And then usually in December, we'll come back and give the proposed calendar for 2024.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
Input or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. Looks like that passes unanimously. Yes, thank you very much. Now I'll turn to council for council comments. Councilor Munns.
Thank you. I just want to thank the community. I want to thank the council members and the mayor that were able to show up for the military appreciation picnic. And it's truly a pleasure when our city is a star by making it one community. It's not the military and the citizens, we are one, and spreading that kindness to everyone. So it was great to see it since it started in 2003, and back in the park where it belongs, and it was thrilling. We fed at least 1,500 people, and over 2,000 people were there. So it was quite the success, and next year it should be even bigger. Anyway, thank you all very much. I appreciate that. And Navy League and the Chamber and the city. The city used to be a little bit more of a partner, so I'll have to work on that on my off year.
Well, thanks to you and Larry and those that you had helping you. I know that you said the captain and his wife showed up and spent the whole day helping, so thanks to you for a lot of time, a lot of hours, and all your work on this.
Well, we had the Daughters of American Revolution, I had some people from church, we had the Lions, I mean, you name it. There was somebody there from that group, and people who just walked up and said, hey, can I help? So I said, sure, here's an apron, get busy. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Council comments? Okay. Thank you very much. We will now move on to item number 6A, which is ordinance number 1980, amendment number 3 to the 2023-2024 biennial budget. And this evening, we should have with us our finance director, David Goldman. Mr. Goldman?
Hello. I am just getting everything set to share that screen. Okay. So this is budget amendment number 3 of the 2023-2024 biennial budget. This budget amendment is to account for the results of the classification and compensation study work that was completed by Cabot Down Associates and staff for non-represented employees. It also incorporates the opioid settlement funding for the 29th officer that was approved by the City Council at the September 5th, 2023 council meeting. So since it's a biennial budget, we split things up into 2 different years. So for 2023, there's no amendments, but there are adjustments. And the main difference between the two is an amendment is to account for new revenue sources, whereas an adjustment is the use of fund balance. So you can see here that based on the work that was done by our consultant and human resources on the classification and compensation study, the total in the 5 funds you see there, general fund, senior center fund, and a couple utility funds and the shop fund, the total, assuming that this becomes effective October 1st, the total for the remainder of the year is about $20,000. For 2024, since we're talking about new revenue sources, there is an amendment we'll be using 70,000 of that opioid settlement funds in conjunction with the reclassification of a vacant position to fund that 29th officer position. And the adjustments for the full year of the work from the classification and compensation study is $84,000 among those same 5 funds. With that, we have a few slides that I think Emma House is available to go over.
Good evening. So from the non-represented classification and compensation study, if approved tonight, the plan is for an implementation date of October 1st. The annual cost of implementation is approximately 1% of total non-represented position costs. The study did focus on a plus or minus, so above or under the minimum and maximum ranges, and looked at those adjustments. We came back to council, gave an update, and then we took that data and we focused on a plus or minus 5%. And that is different from our past compensation philosophy that was the plus or minus 2%. The goals and the focus of the study was the high salary ranges, and our salary range from the min to the max is a total of 33%. Generally, right now in our comps, we were seeing a spread of about 25%. The implementation goal is that there was no salary cuts to existing employees, and the classifications with insufficient matches were compared to similar internal positions. Next slide. There will be an employee appeal process available, which is very similar to our previous study that we did several years ago. And we have received all of the revised job descriptions back from Cabot Dow. Those are in development to get finalized with the department leaders. Our priority is to move forward with implementation and to not delay the pay adjustments. The union positions are not part of the study. This study only covers the non-represented positions, and the city does conduct equivalent studies and processes like this of classification and compensation as part of our union bargaining, which we are currently in.
So with that, the recommendation is to, one, open this up for a public hearing because all budget items are subject to a public hearing. The ordinance number is 1980. And then move to adopt the ordinance 1980, budget amendment number 3, amending the biennial budget and adopting the updated wage and salary schedule and plan of classification. And with that, staff is available to field any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. So before we take it on here at council, I would like to open the public hearing and ask if there are any members of the public here who would like to speak, and doesn't look like it, so I'll also verify that we've not received any comments from our public.
That's correct, Mayor. We received no comments on this item.
Thank you, Julie. So with that, I'll close that public hearing and turn to council for questions and comments. Yes, Councilor Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Goldman, on Exhibit A, wage and salary schedule and compensation plan, blue at the top, it starts off with council, council member, mayor, and it goes down. And I've looked through all these pages, and I don't see our economic development person listed. It's later, it's under service development, but when I go through all these jobs with the blue on top, there's no, and then when I find economic development, it's no match. And so I was just wondering why it wasn't even in the normal list when it is a position. So just asking.
It's in Exhibit A, attached to the ordinance as a position, but you might be talking more about the details of the classification and comp and study. I think Emma might be able to handle that one.
Yeah, I was looking at Exhibit 8 as well, but if we're going down to the salary schedule, is that the one that we're referring to with the green and the blue?
Yeah, I found it in a different position, but thank you.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Councilor Munns. Question answered. Councilor Wittgenstein, did you have a question? Oh, okay. Anyone else? Yes, Counselor Stuckey.
Pure curiosity, how many people take advantage of the employee appeal process? I mean, is it something that is used, or is it just kind of, it's available but not really taken advantage of?
I would probably say there was about 5 to 7 people, if I recall correctly, who took advantage of it last time.
Okay, thank you.
It was a handful.
Anyone else? Yes, Counselor Hoffmeyer.
I move to adopt ordinance number 1980, budget amendment number 3, amending the 2023-2024 biennial budget and adopt an updated wage and salary schedule and plan of classification.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Motion reads exactly like the recommended action in the packet, and that motion was made by Counselor Hoffmeyer and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Heisen. Any other questions or input? Yes, Counselor Munn.
So, as you were saying, this is the first time instead of 2% or 2.5, we are doing 5%. Okay, that's great.
Yes, that's correct.
That is wonderful. Very, very much. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Then I will ask all in favor to raise their right hand. Looks like that passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Goldman and Emma, Mrs. House.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on past ordinances and resolutions since there are none of those tonight. And we have 2 under contracts and agreements and 1 executive session left on our agenda. The first one is item 8A, contracts and agreements. And it is a professional services agreement, Economic Development Council of Island County for County Economic Development Strategy. And I think we have our Economic Development Coordinator, Mr. McCaslin, this evening. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So, as the Mayor said, we're doing a professional services agreement with the EDC for them to provide a comprehensive economic development strategy. So it's the city, along with the county and the other 2 municipalities, Coopville and Langley, who are contracting with the EDC to get this done. So for the county, they need to have this document, this SEDS document, and every 5 years it needs to be updated. What that does for them is it gives them opportunities for additional resources, grants, things like that. The EDC's engaged a consultant, Jennifer Novak, to perform the work. When it's all said and done, all the work comes to us. I mean, we get a copy of all the work, not all of it, but we get a copy of everything. But the consultant is working in conjunction with the EDC and the county for all of the scheduling, planning, and the things that need to do either in front of the scenes and then with the EDA behind the scenes. All right. There you go. So there are 4 task areas. We're already almost done with task 1, which is the planning and the stakeholder engagement, and that was the, part of that was the SWOT that was answered by many of you, so that's good. You participated in that. We're getting ready to roll out of that stage, and it's coming into the research and analysis stage, and then when it comes out of that, it'll go into a draft, and then when it comes out of the draft, or actually the draft will include, you can see on task 3, the second tracer under it is the areas it'll cover as well as other appendices. And then it gets approved by the county commissioners and the EDA, and I'll talk about that here in a second. As far as schedule goes, that's already done. The first 2 items up there have already been done, and I'm representing us as part of the review committee. The next thing that's due on the schedule is the draft, which won't happen until probably sometime around February. And then it'll go out for a 30-day public comment period, and then come back in. That'll get presented to council, or not to council, but to the commissioners down at the county. And then once they approve it, it goes off to the EDA for final approval. If they have comments or changes or whatever, they'll be incorporated because obviously they're the ones that have to approve this. The term is to go through the end of next year, just in case, but it shouldn't take that long. Compensation for our part of it is $24,000, with the first half of it coming up due here pretty soon as we come out of this first stage. And then whenever the draft goes to the Board of Commissioners and the Review Committee, then the second half of it will be due at that point. And this is how the cost came out. It's an $85,000 contract, and it's broken up by population, or estimated population. So the county, which covers all of the unincorporated areas, will have, it's about 68% of it, where Oak Harbor is about 28% of the population of Island County. So 28%, 28.24 of 85,000 is 24,000. So that's how the number came about. Coopville and Langley will pay an appropriate amount based on their population as well. When it's all said and done, then we're looking at next July for a deliverable. We've got some slot built into the contract in case things, the real world gets in the way of anything happening. So if there are no questions about this, I'll answer those, but the recommended motion is on the screen for you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McCaslin. Before we turn to council for questions, I'd like to verify with our city clerk that we've not received anything from the public
That's
involving this
correct.
item.
That's
Okay.
correct, Mayor. No comments from the public.
No public comments, so I'll turn back to council then for questions. Yes, Councilor Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm confused on the timing on this. I mean, if we have already entered into an agreement, why is it just now coming before council to approve the funding of this? I mean, this seems like this is something that we should have talked about in the first part of the year, because it looks like, obviously, as you said, we've already started the process, and so we're going to be asked to pay $12,000 here pretty quick, but we're just now finding out about this. Why is that?
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, it was covered in a workshop.
That's
I
what
was
I
just
thought.
looking on the date there, but we failed to put it on there. But we talked about it months ago. And the other issue is the city council, or the city staff is the requester for this. One of the things we're working with our grants administrator and talking to EDA, the first thing they said is, well, do you have a SEDS? And I said, what's a SEDS? And so I found out what a SEDS was, Comprehensive Economic Development Study. So we asked the county and the EDC to do it. Unfortunately, they were trying to we had a format ready for them, and they decided that they wanted to follow the county's format, and so it took them a little longer to do it. But I mean, I think, as I mentioned, it was already talked about in a workshop months ago, and we're just bringing it now when they had amended the agreement that kind of followed the outline that the county did.
So I would have liked to have that noted in our packet as to what workshop that was. Typically, when we have previous discussion, that's noted within our packet, and I didn't see that this time, because I would have liked to gone back and reviewed that, because this feels like it comes as a surprise. I also still don't fully understand what a SEDS is and what the actual deliverable is. It sounds like the final thing that we get is a press release, and I mean, that's literally what the last thing on the item says is there's going to be a press release. And so what does this do, and what do we get out of this?
There will be, like a city would have a comprehensive or a strategic economic development plan. This is one for the county. So this will be the county's plan, which now we can use portions of that as needed because we participated in putting it together as we develop our plan. The press release is that's another thing, but the actual end product is the actual document, the SEDS document, which is expected to be next summer.
And what does that actually entail? I mean, what are we getting? What is the document going to tell us?
Let me go back a couple slides and I'll help you with that. If you look at task 3, the second tracer there, it's going to talk about it's talking about what the current state is, and then it's going to go into economic strategies that the county can adopt to help the county-wide economic state, including, but to get to there, they're doing these things here. They're doing economic, demographic, SWOT analysis, and then they'll come up with an action plan and a framework all around making a better economy for the island and helping make it more resilient, stronger. Of course, obviously, those are the things we're doing trying to do for the city right now too. As a result of having this, though, it gives the county the ability to get more basically grants. I mean, there are other things there, but it gets more assistance from the EDA. But if you don't have this in place, then there are things they can still get from the EDA, but this opens the door to more assistance from them.
So it sounds like this is a requirement every 5 years. Have we participated in paying for this in the past?
I don't know that the county has done one, so I don't know that answer.
It appears that they haven't done it. I know my colleague at the county, when he was in the city of Blaine, Whatcom County had one, and it was useful to them, and it was a great tool. So he was a real advocate and somebody who had experience of the benefit of having a SIDS. It does correlate some with the comprehensive plan, and one of the questions the county commissioners ask is, well, why can't we just use the comprehensive plan? And we tried to, but the county had updated their element, were talking about updating their element in their comprehensive plan, but then they did the studies and everything, and then they just decided that they didn't want to update it with the data they had, so they didn't even really have that to go on. So, but they're not exactly the same, but they do benefit it, and so some of the material that we get from this, we can use in updating our comprehensive plan element of economic development in our plan and also in the county's plan. So this is a little bit more of a living document than my understanding, than the comprehensive plan, so you really want to have two different ones. And like I said, I mean, we were the ones that when we went to the state went to the federal government, found out that this was something that was looked upon for helping you with getting grant funding, and we were the requester of it.
So it sounds like this is something that the county is required to do. If we decide that we don't want to participate, the county will have to fund it themselves, then, correct?
They could, but I don't know that it's a good partnership with us, and us participating, that helps us be able to participate and also to get the data. And so Steve's already further along in doing it, and so, but I do concur with you, it would have been our preference that this just be done before it started, so, but that unfortunately isn't the way it worked out.
But don't we already pay the Economic Development Council of Island County, so we are a partner with them, that they would supply us with that information?
It's not part of the 10,000, and primary, the extra work is, most of the funding is for a consultant to do additional work, not covered in the regular work that's being done.
So that actually leads to my next question, is why are we paying the EDC, who is paying a consultant, who is then paying a sub-consultant? I mean, it seems like we could kind of skip a step and go right to the sub-consultant.
Because the county commissioned the EDC to do the study.
But then the EDC is hiring this Jennifer lady, you said, who
Right.
then is hiring a sub-consultant.
No, she has no subs. She's the sub to the EDC.
In the packet, it says that she is hiring a sub-consultant.
There's no sub-consultant that and
It is, that is the information that we were presented. It says in task number 2, the sub-consultant will manage any research. So it says that we are hiring her, who will then hire a sub-consultant.
that might be a typo on my part, because it's, to my knowledge, there is no sub-consultant. Jennifer Novak is doing all the work.
So I would like clarification on that, please.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Councilor Hoffmeyer.
A couple of things. First of all, is this, as we all go through our comments here, I would be okay with tabling this for a meeting if that's what ends up being needed. I will say, though, a comprehensive economic development strategy is, certainly something that we need, whether it has to be this route. I guess that's what we're all finding out. Question for Blaine, for the city administrator would be, and if you think this is the proper venue to answer this in, what happens if we approve of this, and what happens if we don't?
I think if we approve of it, then we're a partner, and we continue to do what we have. I think there was some assumptions there, but there's always a risk when you make assumptions, so, but I don't know how the county would react or the EDC would react. I mean, certainly we knew there was a risk for delaying this, so if there's some follow-up questions that will help you feel comfortable, where we can bring back the data that we had before and show the presentation that was given a few months ago, and if we can answer some of the questions of the subcontractor. I mean, the fact is that EDC kind of taken time to do it, so I think, it's probably reasonable for us to take a little time and kick this a little bit more. So if you want to kick it a little bit more and us come back, I'm personally amenable to that. I would hope that we, after answering the questions, that we continue to be good partners and continue to participate in it, but I'm certainly, it's the will of the council, and we'll implement the will of the council in the best we can.
Thank you.
Councilor Stuckey?
I kind of echo Councilmember Marshall a little bit in that it would be nice to have the EDC. I did look real quick because I went on the EDC's website, and they say in April 2023, Island County, the town of Coopville, and the cities of Langley and Oak Harbor voted to cost share the development. So I went back real quick, and I do see a meeting where there was some discussion that said it would be brought at a later date for a vote. But it'd be nice to table this and to have someone from the EDC come, because I agree, I want to know exactly what it is, and it sounds like it's helping the county, and I understand we need to be a good partner, we don't want to just be our own little island within an island, I understand that, but then there's also, are we paying $24,000 for something that doesn't really help us, we're just trying to be a partner?
Well, here's the thing. When we do an EDA grant, we use the SEDS grant, our SEDS report that we got from the county for our qualification for that grant. So we were looking for a grant related to the Marina, and the only one we could find was an EDA grant that possibly qualified for it. And that's where the process started. And then we went to the EDC, and they said, oh yeah, we knew we should have one. And I said, well, we have a good reason to have one, why don't you do it? So we did it. But unfortunately, they've taken a little longer to do the approval side. So to answer your question there. So, but I think I provided a lot of data. They've got a lot of data in there on all the justification and the pros and cons. I mean, we can fill another 30 pages if you want in the packet with data on it. It's out there, very well known, like I said, and we shared some of it last time and kind of minimized it a little bit this time in the summary, but certainly, and if it really helps, we can bring the EDC and my colleague at the county. But the county's not easy to give out money to, and so, they've been apprehensive about it. And then also with the report there, that's an error. I always conditioned anything I did was subject of the council, and I can't speak for the council, so I can't prove something in advance without the council's authorization. So I just told them that I would bring it to the council, so.
And if we led them to believe in April, and I'll need to check the video, that we were going to approve this, it's a little uncouth of us to pull the rug out from underneath them later. I understand that. I'm just making sure that this has a direct, tangible benefit for Oak Harbor and not some loose, indirect benefits.
Absolutely, and if I didn't view that, I wouldn't be open to us paying a
Sure.
share, and I wouldn't be before you recommending that we pay a share of it.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Eisen.
Thank you. I support this. I think, I understand that having a strategic plan is key and would be a requirement for lots of grant opportunities. So I do think it needs to be done, and, I think to not partner with the county and the Economic Development Council would be pretty unprecedented. That said, I would also like more detail about what exactly we're paying for. So I would support tabling this until next meeting or next workshop, whatever, and give you some time to gather some more information. Thank you.
Councilor Wiggins-Stein.
Yeah, I want the same sentiments as Councilmember Marshall and many other council members have said. One, I don't feel like we have enough information. I wasn't in that workshop. I can go back and review it as some of us will as well, and see where we're standing. One, what fund does this come out? Is this coming out of a general fund, or is it this money? Is this been already earmarked for this type of work?
We have a budget already in the mayor executive budget that has some economic development funding in it, and that's where it would come out of.
So it's set aside, okay.
Yeah.
And then, the sentiment is it'd be really nice to, again, reference anything we've done previously in our packets so that those of us who weren't present there can know where to go to look. Right?
Yeah,
That would have been really helpful.
We usually do, and I apologize that
Yeah.
we missed this one.
And
Yeah.
I'd like to know what our benefit is. I mean, I get that anything that the county does has the potential to benefit Oak Harbor as being the largest city on the island. And I'm all for partnerships as well. I think it's vital that we build those relationships. However, last minute and, we're on the 3rd yard line here and we're unprepared for it. And I feel like we need more information. So more data would be absolutely as helpful, even though it takes more time to review it sometimes. It's what we're here to do.
Yeah, I mean, we're the only incorporated municipality. We are the economic driver of the county. So, and I think our economic development coordinator can speak to that in job stuff and the analysis that they've got. I mean, there's small stuff going on in Langley and small stuff in Clinton and other areas, but we have the huge employers here and we have the potential for economic development opportunities. So I think we're the most beneficial for it. That's what I would recommend you do that. But I'm certainly, willing to, we'll follow your direction and do that. It's going to take us a little bit of time, so usually we already have the things for October 3rd already kind of done. So we would continue it to the October, I have the calendar right here. So 17th is if you wanted to make a motion to table the item to the October 17th. We'll come back and answer all your questions. If there's any other questions you have, just make sure we get them now, so that helps us make sure that we cover everything that you're looking for.
Thank you.
Councilor Munns?
Thank you, Mayor. So Steve or Blaine, whichever one, we were going to do our own CEDS, but then the county said, hey, why don't you join with us to do this?
No, they're doing this for the county.
Okay,
And for the county having it, it opens up the county, meaning what Blaine said earlier, us is one of the part of the county, to have access to more funds, grants, and other assistance. I'm still working on ours too, and data that comes from this and the benefits that come from this will help us with ours as well.
And to add to that, SEDS are usually done on a regional basis. There was some talk about doing this on a by-county basis with Skagit County, and then they chose not to go there. But Skagit County is working on theirs too. So we have a regional economic development council, so that's who's taking the lead on it. It just happens to be county instead of multi-county, but it could be.
has Skagit County ever done this before?
I don't know if they have or not. I don't know that answer. I can find out, though.
So obviously, Island County's never done this before, but now they've decided that maybe we should.
I can't tell you that they never done it before, but I can tell you they haven't done it before recently, and there is not a valid one now.
Okay.
I mean, that's all I can answer. I know Skagit County is undertaking one right now, but I don't know whether they've done one in the past.
Is there a time period associated with this plan once it's completed?
Well, every 5 years, once it gets completed, it has to be updated.
Is there some way it can be written into this that the county will start to redo this before the end of the 5 years so it can continue? With our updates on building permits and UGA and all of this, we do our plan on time. I mean, development services, we have always done on time. And the county can be 10 years late or 13 years late. And so if we're putting money into this so that, in a sense, they're the bigwig and they're doing the region, it would be nice to know that this money and the investment for this plan, and when it comes up either at 5 years or just before 5 years, we start the process over again so there isn't lapse in some grants that we are trying for. But Blaine, you've been here long enough to know the county is usually not on time with some of these state-required plans. And so I would just like a little reinsurance that we're going to be partners, and I think we're good partners, and we've always done it and been on time and handed it to them. They go, oh, well, we're not ready to start this right now, or we don't, we're not going to spend the money on it. And so if there's some way. The other thing is, when you read Article 2, Scope of Services, this consultant shall provide general project management and subcontractor and consultant oversight for the development of this, and the consultant will subcontract to the development of this, and the consultant will be responsible for ensuring performance of the subcontractor and the consultant. And so I don't understand, if they're only hiring one person, why all this other extra language is in there. It sounds like there's two other people that the consultant is going to hire on the way this is written, but you say that was a mistake, that it shouldn't.
It wasn't, so whether it was it's my mistake one way or another. Whether
Okay.
it was there, I did not believe that was happening. But having been a consultant for 10 years, that's not unstandard language. That's pretty standard, that if I want to bring someone else on, then it's up to me to pay them.
Okay, well, if
And
you
I'm
could-
responsible for their work.
The way this is written, it sounds like we're paying
We'll clarify it.
3 people. To have that clarified, I think would ease a lot of people's minds.
Okay,
So-
we will clarify that.
Yeah, and to answer your other question, or other comment there.
Yes, sir.
By us having an economic stake in it, it gives us a partnership.
Okay.
And it gives us ability to kind of drive it. So that's the benefit. So you're really making a case for us to be a partner with the county and having a history with making a contribution. But if we don't make a contribution, then we're kind of at the whim of the county. So it's
can see
a
that.
plus. There's a plus to us having a
But
partnership
I don't
with
want
that.
them to lapse on this once it is started, if it's been years since they've had written a CEDS.
I agree with you, but I
Okay.
think by having this kind of historical, where we make a contribution, we could kind of do it again and come back and say, we'll make a contribution with you if you do that. So I think there's a plus there. And I believe that Whatcom County, that I have an understanding, they just have it on their regular thing. Every 5 years they do it. So I think this, by us getting us on here, I think there's a good chance that we do that. And we mentioned earlier, we're up in our game in grants, and that's how we discovered being aggressive on getting grants is how we discovered what a SEDS was. So
I have no doubt this staff will be on it and pushing it. My doubts are, sorry, our county partner has been laxing, and I would love it, but if we could be sure that they're going to have it on their 5-year plan, like you say, Whatcom County, every 5 years, they've got it on there, and bingo, they do it. So I'm just a little leery.
yeah, but
It's not going to break the bank, but I want to be sure. And it just seems strange that, okay, it was mentioned in the workshop, but like everyone else, it wasn't included in our packet the past date. Usually you're very good about putting on this date, we discussed this, and just did this. But to see that it started April 1st, it's 6 months ago that we should have already said, okay, we'll spend the money. So I'm for it. I just have reservations. I would like to be sure we can put our hand down and say, hey, let's do this, okay?
So to follow up with your comment on the county, as late, we've got some great county partnership. We've got $1 million for the Marina, for the dredging project, for the community economic development funding. And then we also got over $500,000 for Conservation's Futures to buy property, remnant property in Friend Marsh. So we've got some great partnership, and I think we want to continue that great partnership with the county.
Well, I hope so too. I just remember when we were doing our park and they promised a certain amount, and at the last minute they jerked it. And then when we got all this publicity, they went, oh, well, we'll put in the kitchen. So I'm reliving headlines in the paper. So the city works too hard to be conservative with the money, but also if we say we're doing something, we do it. And that's just all. Thank you. Push them.
Okay, before I ask the council to consider a motion to table this thing. I have two things. I think you said Oak Harbor's the only incorporated city in Island County. I don't believe that's true. I think Langley is incorporated, so I want to clear the record there.
Oh, I apologize for that.
Well, not looking, it could be.
I think I meant the
too.
largest one,
Okay.
largest, yeah.
Anyway, number two, the question I had is population split the only way to split this fee? And I'm only asking that is, why wouldn't they consider like sales tax collected? Of course, I guess I should look at those numbers before I spout that off. But is there another way besides population?
Oh, you're right, there's lots of ways. That was just one of the ways that we picked.
Okay.
But you're right, there's other numbers, sales
Well,
tax.
those,
yeah.
and my friends in Coupeville and Langley are probably not going to like this, but they're pretty small numbers in that pie chart that I looked at. So Coupeville and Langley are going to end up with a SEDS and not pay much money at all. If we're paying 24 grand for our, so, and they do pretty well in the sales tax area last time I looked at both of those little cities. So I just thought it's food for thought. So having said that, Mr. Marshall's got his hand up.
Thank you,
Councilor
Mayor.
Marshall.
I just wanted to clarify one of my comments. I think I made a mistake, Mr. McCaslin, and I think that the EDC is the contractor, and then Ms. Novak is the subcontractor that's being referenced.
That was my understanding,
Yes, I
sir.
believe that I understand that now in rereading it. And I just want to clarify that I'm not opposed to this. I just want to make sure that I understand what we're getting for the money. And if this is a requirement to do every 5 years, I don't want to be obligated to be a partner in this necessarily in 5 years. I think it's prudent that we see what kind of return we get off of our investment of $24,000 before we make any commitments to entering into this kind of agreement again. So I apologize for the misunderstanding, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
That's good. I was going to respond to Councilor Munns. I don't speak with you guys often, and I'm the one that put all this together, so if there's something missing, it's my, I guess I'm a new guy doing this, and so I guess I need to do it more, so I do it right.
Councilor Ottmeyer.
Before I moved that we table this until probably October 17th, I think in the middle of presentation, we just all kind of went to it. And if it is getting tabled, it's probably not the end of the world. But I don't think we opened it up for public comment yet.
It's not the same as the current open public hearing.
Perfect. I moved that we table this until Tuesday, October 17th.
Second.
And second to table this item number 8A to October 7th. Motion made by Councilor Ottmeyer, second by Councilor Wiggins. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Passes unanimously. Okay. Questions down. Okay. Bring it back and talk about it again. Thank you, Tim. Sorry, I wanted to say thanks for that, all that dialogue and input, and thanks for understanding. And we'll now move on to our next item, which is item number, guess I better put my glasses on again. Item number 8B, Northeast 7th Avenue Reconstruction, Local Agency Agreement Supplement Number 01. Does not look like our city engineer, Alex Warner. Looks like our Public Works Director, Steve Schuler.
Correct, Mayor.
Welcome, Steve.
Alex called me this morning, and he sounded horrible. He called in sick today, as he should, based on the sound of his voice. So he asked me to pitch it for him, so I'm very excited to be here. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, involved citizens. All right, tonight we're just going to briefly talk about the 7th Street reconstruction project, and what we'd like tonight is the council to look at and review an agreement we need to sign with WashDOT, which they manage the federal dollars, and so we need an agreement to move forward in this process. So because Alex asked me to fill in, of course, I immediately changed and added a few more slides, and asked our city clerk if I could just give you a little bit more context, because I think it is helpful. I'm going to be very brief, but I think it's always good for council to have not just the project understanding, but where does it fit in the bigger picture. So the city has a 2016-2036 transportation plan. That's part of our comprehensive planning, as many as you know. And in that document, it talks about many things, but it really says that the city should do two things, two major things. Number one, maintain what we have for $2.3 million and reconstruct 7th Street. So tonight, we're talking about one of the two main things to do that the city wants to do over the next 20 years in the transportation element. When it comes to pavement management, as you know, the voters approved and the council brought forward and the mayor a transportation benefit district, and that brings in over $1 million every year. And so, of course, these are based on 2016 dollars, but we are spending, on average, $1 million to preserve our roads, and are going to need to continue to do that in the future. So we're spending a lot more on project number one, and then again, tonight we'll get into project number two. All right, the design is completed. We've been working with Trantech Engineering, and so that is great news. And so tonight, we're going to be talking about an agreement with Washington State Department of Transportation to move to the construction phase. And here's a photo of what the road looks like right now. Just a 2-lane road, no other real improvements. A few sidewalks in some of the areas. All right, I know many of you are aware of this. This is where 7th Street is, just south of Crosby, in between Oak Harbor Street and SR 20. Here's just a photo of the final plans, and you are invited to come and take a look at the whole set anytime you want to and talk with your engineers and get into all the details that you would like as we move forward. I wanted just to give you a brief overview of what the plan is. So the green that you see there is on the north side of the road. The design includes a 12-foot shared use path. And so that's both for bicycles and pedestrians and scooters and electric scooters and all the other things that we'll be inventing as the years come by. So on the north side, there'll be pedestrian improvements, again, a 12-foot wide pedestrian path. Then the yellow represents the road. The kind of darker yellow to the right or to the south, we will be extending the road 6 feet to the south in order to make all these improvements in that small area that we have there now. Then what will be really nice is that the shared use path will actually be disconnected. There'll be like a 3-foot vegetative buffer. So it'll be really nice when you're riding your bike or you're walking, you won't be on the side of the road. And if you're holding your 2-year-old's hand, you don't be quite so panicked that they'll jump right into the travel lane as you make it down the road. So that is what the main part of the improvements will look like. We are matching these with some of the existing sidewalks in the area at both intersections, and so those will remain. So just think of the middle part of 7th Street will look like this, and then the two ends will look very much like they do today. All right, so we did a couple of things. Number one, we reduced the scope. So the scope had improvements, pedestrian improvements on both the north side and the south side. And as we took a look at it over this last year, we realized we needed to reduce the scope. That was for two reasons. One was environmental regulation. This area is surrounded by wetlands on both sides, which severely restricts what we can do. And then the stormwater regulations, I can't speak tonight, the stormwater regulations have really increased. And so when we go out to do any kind of project, I just want council to be aware that those costs are significant now. Now, again, that is, to make benefits to our stormwater and to the water quality of the Puget Sound, which I think we're all in favor of. But I just want you to be aware that in my 30-year career, it is continuing to be more and more restrictive, and it is even more restrictive than just the last 5 years. Those regulations have really increased, making it very difficult to do any kind of paving, whether it's sidewalks, whether it's new roads, that limits what we can do. So in both these cases, we needed to, the wetlands and the stormwater, we needed to reduce the scope. The second thing that you're very well aware of is just the construction inflation has been crazy, right? So as we looked at those numbers, we realized we needed to reduce what the original ideas were. What that meant is that there's going to be no additional pedestrian improvements on the south side. There's some there now, but we won't be doing any additional ones. Number two, there'll be no intersection improvements either at Oak Harbor Street, which I know had been talked about with the council before, maybe a mini roundabout and things like that, or any improvements on Highway SR 20. In order for us to get the state TIB grant, which I'll talk about, they required us, they said, if you want to, you can submit whatever you want, but here's our feedback. If you want to be successful, you need to reduce the scope. And if you reduce the scope, then I think you have a better chance of getting a grant. So we listened to their advice and we reduced the scope. And I think we would not have been successful and would have not gotten the grant if we had extended beyond the scope we have now. Two, we realized, working with the feds, that we needed to make sure we didn't get any additional right-of-way. And so we wanted to make sure we didn't have to go out and go through property acquisitions and do any of that in this federal environment and all the issues that requires. All right, so Trantech's engineering estimate for construction is $2.3 million. Our federal grant, which we had received before through the Island County process, is 1.3, almost 1.4 million. And then we went out this last year and we got new funding. We got a state grant also for $837,000, and that's the city has not gotten that state TIB grant. It's been 17 years since we've gone out and gotten that funding. So very exciting that we've gone out there again and gotten a share of the state grant. So you can see those two alone really add up to a lot of money. And then we normally do the construction management in-house. We have an amazing team in the engineering department. I am very impressed. I'm not just saying that. I'm saying that because it really is true. They're doing a great job. We normally use in-house services. With the federal money, we're going to highly recommend we use a construction manager. The feds are wonderful people, but it's pain in every body element that you can imagine when you go through a construction project. They spend $5 to make sure every dollar, every T's crossed, adds 3 I's where you should just have 1 I. So we're really going to recommend we have that. Otherwise, we're just going to spend that money on the back end and delay a lot of things, has been my experience. So the total construction phase, we're looking at $2.7 million. What is our local city match requirements? From the street fund, we're estimating about $527,000. And then while we're doing this, we would like to replace the water line. So from the water fund, we're estimating about $94,000 for a total of $622,000. So on our estimates, that means that this project will be 78% grant funded, which is an awesome to be able to have most of this funding come from outside local city tax dollars. Then I just want to make a small point that street fund, a lot of that is working with the mayor and the council. A lot of that money is coming from the money we have saved from the Facama Access Road. So that money we were going to spend over there is now coming over to do this work. Then the other money that we would be spending, which we would have spent on West Woodby, is because we got a state TIB grant to go do the pavement portion of the West Woodby project. So we have that money sitting around. So the good news is we got a lot of cash sitting around because we've been saving it on a number of projects, and we'll use that for our local match here as we need to. And I think there'll be leftover money that we can disperse elsewhere that you can decide what you want to do. All right, estimated schedule. We're looking at go to advertising for construction bids this winter, start construction in the spring, and be substantial completion by the end of the year. And then, of course, we'll continue to work with you and work with Sabrina, who does a great job on our public engagement and outreach, make sure that people are really aware of this. This will be disruptive. Those that use 7th Street, there'll be times you won't be able to use it. There'll be times that it'll be flagged and it'll be one way only. So I like to always overtell you, it'll be horrible. It'll shut down that whole area. You won't be able to use it. You'll get used to going the other way, and then when it's all done, it'll be beautiful. So that's kind of the way it'll go when we start. All right, so our recommended motion tonight is that the council approve having the mayor sign the local agreement to move forward with this federal funding process, which will allow us to move forward to construction. Any questions?
Thank you, Steve. Nice presentation for taking it with not a lot of notice. Well done.
Thanks.
Before we turn to council, I'd like to verify with our clerk that we've had no input from the public regarding this.
That's correct, Mayor. We received no input.
Okay, good. Then we'll turn to council. And Councilor Hoffmeyer.
Director Schuler, I think the proper phrase there might be kicking butt and taking names. Keep doing what you guys are doing. I remember it would, and some other counselors here might remember exactly, but it would have been early 2000s. I remember former Councilmember Paul Brewer standing beside Northeast 7th there with Woodby News Times with Jesse Stensland, and at that time it had already been an issue for at least a decade. 2011 rolls around. There was some federal monies or some state monies. I can't recall which. A recession had happened. There was a culturally sensitive situation down on Southeast Pioneer, and the city ended up not having the matching funds. So here we are. We're almost to the finish line. This is huge. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was disappointed to see that the design that council chose in 2021 had been changed, but I'm thrilled to see that it's 78% grant funded and that we were able to use some of the funds that we saved elsewhere. So that price tag, even though it went up significantly, it doesn't hurt quite as much. It's not as painful. So great job. Really looking forward to it. Like Shane said, that road has just been a menace for way too long. So really looking forward to fixing it. Thank you.
Councilor Wittgenstein.
Yeah, I can reiterate what the others have said, and please note that. I do have one question, though, in kind of the plan. Since we had to scope back and only do the north side of the street with the pathway, how is the south side of the street residents in that apartment complex there by the nursery going to get to that? Is there an intent to put a crosswalk in there? If there is, then good. Because I think that's important too as well. I mean, it's both sides that get utilized. I can go back as far as when I was, sneaking out of the house as a teenager, trying to get to Jason's restaurant for coffee, running down that street and diving in the ditch to get away from oncoming cars because you don't want to be caught. You're like, 13, 14 years old. I'm probably telling on myself, so hopefully my parents aren't watching tonight. But yes, this road has been needed since long before that early 2000s article. I'm really pleased to be seeing this get done. I drive it every day. So I will have to be inconvenienced a little bit when this is going down next year, and I'm okay with that. This is a great project. I'm really thankful for the work and that we can afford to do this with the match. It's a good way to use the money that is geared for this type of project. So thank you.
Councilor Munns.
Thank you if I may, just thank you for that wonderful question. So yes, if others didn't, yes. And so where the existing road is to the south by the nursery, there will be a pedestrian crossing added there. There's going to be, I believe, 2 new ones that will be striped and new crossings. So thank you. Excellent question. And I'll have to verify that, yes, what we intend to do there. Yeah,
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Schuler, I believe that in front of the apartment building, the blue one, there's a pretty good size, normal size sidewalk there. And then maybe a little bit for that dirt lane that goes down, and then the nursery also has a good sidewalk. So anywhere from one point that they can get across would be great. Isn't it Sandra Place that has written the great crosswalk grant where they light up? I mean, I think she's gotten them for the school district and some others. I mean, I think she kind of has a line in on how that was supposed to be written or not for those type of crosswalks. Question, when you were talking about the schedule, so if we need to hire a construction manager to be sure everything is how the feds want, we would hire this position before we start work, I would presume.
So we would go out to a consulting firm and bring you an agreement with that consulting firm to hire them during the construction time.
Is there a list from the state and/or feds acceptable firms?
There could be a list, but there's also the MSRC, and
Right,
so
right,
we
right.
would go through the normal state process, yes.
And they're all lawyers there pretty much, so they make sure, MRSC is pretty much all lawyers on their staff, so.
Right.
I've yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Work
make
with
sure
them.
and follow those guidelines, yes. Thank you.
No, this is, along in '08, '09, we had a plan, paid for money, and had it, the design, and it got shelved. And it just sat there because there wasn't any other funds. So this is a hallelujah for sure, raise the roof on it. And to see the families from all the apartments across there on Oak Harbor with their strollers trying to go where there is no sidewalks and stuff, this will be quite a relief. Is there any more comment? Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
Councilor Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mrs. Jewler, for the presentation. I see in the description of proposed work that includes illumination, so we're going to get some new street lights there to go with the new path, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And then the proposed intersection improvements at Oak Harbor Street, that was kind of my first tenure, or early on when I was on council. And it seemed to be that was part of it was safety concerns for pedestrians that were crossing. Is that something that we can either address with this plan, with the lighted crosswalks, or is this something that we can come back to at a later date to look at improvements in that intersection? Because it sounded like that mini roundabout really wasn't going to take any additional road space. We weren't going to have to go into the other side of Oak Harbor Street. So is that something that, if it's not part of this scope, we could, if deemed necessary, that we could come back and take a look at it at a later date?
Yeah, so your first question, you're right, that's a good one. You can always do future phases, right? So if you want to finish off the south end or want to do improvements at either one of those intersections, can always be something that's a priority and that we work for then completing those phases. To your second question, I did see the mini roundabout that I got here. I did not review it in detail, but I don't know, without doing further research, whether that really would improve pedestrian safety. There's fairly good pedestrian safety there now. We could always increase that, maybe add a rapid flashing beacon and do some other things, upgrade that to the latest one. But a mini roundabout wouldn't necessarily, in fact, a mini roundabout can make it where people are used to not stopping, and so then they get in the habit of not stopping for pedestrians. So I don't know what the latest research on that is, so I don't think that would necessarily make any pedestrian improvements on a large scale, and then also I don't think it would necessarily help with traffic capacity on a large scale. In my experience over the last year and 5 months, I've watched that intersection, and I'm not convinced that on 99% of the time that it would be needed for traffic capacity. Okay. That's my professional opinion.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Stuckey.
Aside from the housing, there are some businesses there that will be affected by this construction. And also specifically, there's the EMS that will be affected as well. Are we going to work with them? Are they going to have a plan to, I mean, I would hate for an ambulance to get delayed or something like that due to construction.
Yes, so like I said before, it's going to be horrible. It's going to shut down this whole area. No one's going to be able to move in that area. It's always nice to just start off with making it, and then if it's not quite that bad, it's nice. But yes, we are definitely, good questions. We're going to work with them very closely. Yes, with the EMS, we got to make sure they have access 24/7. So they will always have access, whatever's going on, right? And we'll have to make sure that our road closures, and much like West Woodby where that was closed, you know, if you're a local homeowner, you know to drive around the barricade and they make sure that you get to your driveway. So that'll be true with the businesses. And for a business, it will be disruptive for them, but we will work very hard to make sure that we'll put signs that say, you know, business is open, customers, you know, are allowed, and the customers may have to find a new route in some times during the phase, but we'll work very closely with them and do the best we can.
I guess I'll have to buy some extra flowers for my wife to keep greenhouse going during the construction. With that, I move to authorize the mayor to sign the local agency agreement supplement for the Northeast 7th Avenue reconstruction project.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second that reads exactly like the recommended action. That motion was made by Councilor Stuckey and seconded by Councilor Munns. Any other questions or input? Seeing none, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay, that passes unanimously.
And a hallelujah.
I might remind you that that 10-year plan that you mentioned, 2016 to 2026, 2016 was the year I became mayor. And I remember that being the number 2. 8 years later. Yeah, it is not because of staff. I know that for a fact. So, thank you. A lot of work has gone into that piece of roadway, and it'll be sure nice to see it look newer, nicer. Okay, at this time, we're going into executive session. The council will move to another room to consider this is to consider the minimum price at which real estate will be offered for sale or lease when the public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause a likelihood of decreased price. And this reason for this discussion is given under RCW 4230-110, Section 1, Paragraph C. Anticipated duration is 15 minutes. Action may or may not be taken upon return to the open session. The executive sessions are not open to the public, so we will go into that room. And I think because it takes us, some of us, a little longer to get there than others, we'll start that 15 minutes when I say from the doorway. Okay?
Julie, we're good to go, aren't we?
Okay, I'd like to reopen the regular meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council. It is Tuesday, what is it? September. Got the right month this time. It is September 18th, and it is, oh, it is the 19th. Yes, it is the 19th. Boy, I'm having a tough night tonight. And I'd like to call the meeting back to order. We have been in executive session, and I believe there's no action to be taken as a result of the executive session. So we'll just turn over to City Council and ask if there's any more business for the regular meeting. Anybody got any more business? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Got a motion second? We don't need to even vote on it. We just wave goodbye. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming.